Assalamu alaikum to some of you, and general greetings and well wishes to the rest of you. Sorry about that. Listen, after seeing Minister Banks' post, I couldn't find anything wrong with it. As a former educator in both Georgia and in Louisiana, and now teaching in the Middle East, I can tell you that there really is a whole lot of truth to his post and not an iota of falsehood. But I also read where some of you got to making assumptions about what he said, making assumptions about what he meant, really. It's almost like some of you started to react without actually reading the post and thinking about it first, and avoiding negative assumptions. Look, he simply said, don't send them to school with $200 shoes on and no school supplies. I taught in Capitol Middle for a semester in Baton Rouge years ago. And as a matter of fact, it was during that semester that I had the one opportunity to meet Minister Banks. Now, I'm not a Christian. I'm a Muslim, hopefully so until the casket drops. But I could tell you this, though. When it comes down to it, this is true for just about any faith, no matter what your belief system is. In this world that we live in, where we don't have to observe too many things through faith, we can use our five senses. The fact is that you got kids in these schools, in these classrooms, that have on $200 shoes, and their priorities, generally speaking, can be different even from each other's. You can have one kid with the same pair of shoes on as his neighbor, and one of them is studying and the other one is not. But what is also true, and we have seen this, is that the students who have these shoes on and do not have the school supplies do fit that criteria of needing the supplies most. So let me go ahead and say this. Not only is Minister Banks right about this, but we as black folks need to go beyond simply not prioritizing fashion over supplies. We need to turn around and oppose our children's senses of fashion, really. Because our children are following a youth culture that doesn't change over the generations. For whatever reason, it was like this back in 1990 when I was going through middle school, and it stayed like this 27 years later. A generation later, it stayed like this. You wear expensive clothes or you are discounted as a human being by your peers. I don't know where this came from. Now, I'm not saying that kids never made fun of somebody who came to school with rags and holes in their clothes. I'm saying that my parents never heard of a time where you had to have on expensive clothing that you could not afford in order to be simply treated normally by your peers, or at the very least allowed to blend into the background. Now, folks didn't grow up with that being the case. You have to have on expensive clothing. It can't be even medium price. It can't be normal. You can't blend into the background. If you don't have expensive clothing on, you are going to be bothered to the point you can't focus on your schoolwork, if not physically beaten. We got to oppose this sort of thing. So not only is buying your kids $200 shoes not what Minister Banks is talking about, as though it's something bad, I am the one getting up here and saying, buying your kids $200 shoes, $60 shirts, shoot, $30 pants this day and time, definitely 50 and above for the parents to send them to school so that nobody bothers them, is feeding into a culture that we really can't afford, honestly. But once you send a kid to school with these things and you don't send them with school supplies, believe you me, with an environment that is already negative enough to come down on them for not wearing clothes that are too expensive, believe you me, they will be forced to take on the priority of clothing and not education. And if they got to sit up here and ask for a pencil and a piece of paper every time they have an assignment given to them, believe you me, they're going to flunk that assignment even after we hand them the paper and the pencil. They will fail, and they will fail miserably. That's how the culture is set up. Now, I don't know where it came from. I'm not sure exactly who began it, but somehow somebody that was not one of us was able to engineer this kind of culture specifically to the youth, to the point that it won't change even after 27 years. Now, how long do we stay youth? How long do we stay in middle school until we graduate? 7 years. 27 years? That is somebody starting middle school back then and finishing. And then another completely different crop of students starting middle school and then finishing high school. And then another completely different crop of students starting middle school and then finishing high school. And then a fourth crop of students, none of these crops of students knowing each other, starting middle school, and they're about to finish high school after another year. That's how many have gone by, and this youth culture has not changed. Although our parents and definitely our grandparents did not come up in this. And you all got the nerve, some of you got the nerve to come down on Minister Banks about this, like he crazy. No, he was being nice. I'm saying no, don't buy $200 shoes for your kids. We don't own anything. We can't go to the politicians and say to them, look, Norwich Greenhouse, that deputy marshal across the river from most of you, and where some of you live across the river, and Deputy Marshal Stafford are in jail for doing the same thing that white cops have been doing to black people and walking for them and going free. But they got to be in jail, and one of them's already been sentenced to 4 decades. So what if they pulled the trigger on that driver of the car after he put his hands up? He had already run off. They shot his kid accidentally, but you know it is the father's fault. You get this man out of prison. We don't have the money to do that. Well, if we don't have the money to do that, then where are we getting the money for $200 shoes for? Right now, let me tell you, let me explain something to you. I have used my appearance many times to listen to what the greater America, if you will, or the majority of America is thinking and planning for us. It is nasty as all get out. That's one of the reasons I left the country. I'm not in the U.S. as I record this. I'm in the Middle East right now as I record this. Partially because I was running from what I know they're planning on doing to us. It's nasty. And since I've been here, what I've seen is that we black people do not have friends even internationally at this point. We have some who are not enemies, and we got some who are enemies. And we got some who are about to become enemies because American television is global at this point and is translated in almost every language. So we're in for a rough ride, not just in the United States, even outside the United States where I am. It's nasty. And we spending $200 shoes. $200 on shoes for our kids so that my baby can go to school and have a nice day. It's better to keep your kid home and homeschooling, to be honest, if you can do it. But if you can't, then what you do is you get some normal looking shoes that are gonna last your child. You send your child to school with expensive shoes so that they can get what? Peer group acceptance? I'm sorry, black people, we're too broken. We don't have such a thing as peer group acceptance. Just look at Minister Banks' post and then look how many of you reacted negatively to that, and he wasn't even being offensive. We don't have peer group acceptance. We fight each other over everything. That's because something up here is broken. So $200 shoes ain't gonna fix it. School supplies are the first step to fix it. Now, with the right attitude towards education, along with the school supplies, this can change within a 7-year time frame, definitely within a decade. But with $200 shoes on, in addition to, that's just the beginning, but $200 shoes on, in addition to $60 and $50 pants and above, and no school supplies, this won't change because you are not in control even of your own thinking over there in the U.S. The only way you can start to become in control is frankly by learning to distrust majority America. Don't believe anything they put on television. Don't believe what they even teach your kids in the classrooms. You got to learn history and teach them that. So you got a much bigger job. The priority of fashion over education is the opposite of what we need to be doing in order to mentally free the kids. Because if they go to school with the school supplies and we don't monitor their education, they're still going to come out throwed, afflicted. And if you do monitor their education, you still got to know what lies are in the history book so you can tell them what is true. Did you know that the first people to ever settle South America didn't look like the ones you can see in the jungles of South America today? No. They look like many of you. Oh yeah, that's right. Black folks were the first ones to settle South America. Maybe not North America, but South America. They found this out in the 2000s when they found some bones that did DNA analysis and found out they got African DNA, not Indian DNA. Oh, now did they change the history books? No. You got to find this out watching documentaries. And then in addition to that, you got to send your kids to school with this knowledge so they know. When the teacher tells you this and it's not true, the teacher may not know. Write it down on the test, but you need to know that the real truth was left out. This is the real truth, and it was left out of the history books, so that not only your teacher wouldn't know, but rather you wouldn't know. Why? Because if you don't know, you're going to seek dignity from something else. Like, I don't know, wasting money you don't have on fashion statements. So how dare some of you come down on Brother Banks? What you need to do is fut the shuck up, first off, and go read some history. Read about psychological warfare. And watch a few YouTube videos. They're long, but watch them. Watch Frances Cress Welsing. Watch Joy DeGruy. Her last name is spelled D-U-G-R-U-Y. That's one person you can watch. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, and the other one, Dr. Joy DeGruy. And they can get you started on the effects of the psychological warfare that was done to us since we were brought to those shores that you're still on. And when you learn about that, that's the first step to undoing the damage that's been done. So that not only will you stop trying to defend the process of sending a kid to school with $200 shoes on, but you'll understand why, first off, we need to refuse expensive clothes for our kids, and secondly, why we need to do a much better job of monitoring the education and undoing the education of our kids. Because they're at war with you. You don't know they're at war with you, but they're at war with you. And war is deception. And you got to teach your children to write down what they want on the test, but also what the real truth is that was not put in the history textbooks, even if the teacher, him or herself, just simply was never taught this. Stop coming down on people like Minister Banks for this. Because I'm going to be honest with you, Minister Banks, being a Christian minister, is a much nicer alternative to what I tell Muslims to be doing in order to get us out of the oppression that we're in. You don't want to hear what I tell Muslims that they should be doing and what they're a bunch of punks and cowards for not doing to get us out of the oppression. Believe you me, you want the Minister Banks alternative. You don't want Shiny Black's alternative for that. I mean, nobody, white or black, they don't want my alternative for this. I hope that what I've been saying has been a benefit to you, because I'm not saying this with necessarily hatred for any of you. But I am saying this so that we correct ourselves. Because right now, you got enemies, and I got enemies, and they're not just in the United States either. Oh, no, no, no. More and more people abroad are becoming enemies. For us to be free, every decade that we don't become completely free of white supremacy somewhere is another decade we got more enemies in other parts of the globe that we didn't even know we had. That's one less nation we can go to get off to a fresh start or a clean start or a neutral start even. Yeah, you didn't know that. But see, it's not just America, it's the entire world that is being brainwashed against black folks. Africa's being brainwashed against black folks, and that's the black continent. Skin bleach is the highest selling cosmetic product on the African continent and the Caribbean islands next door to you. Yeah, that's real. Why? Psychological warfare against black folks is working to the point we become anti ourselves. What is the reason? Well, the first thing they do is they come and they tell us that we never did anything. They do that through the educational system by simply not teaching any of our history. Just that. So then, because we feel like we never did anything, we need some kind of dignity. And we seek it through these material things that are intentionally overpriced because they know that we have somehow been brainwashed to buy the stuff. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that the people who hate you are laughing at you because they're making money hand and foot over selling you overpriced items that you're willing to buy just to show that you got some kind of dignity. That's what's going on. Believe you me, I've been in white communities just to hear what they're saying, see how they're thinking. They do not spend money they don't have on these things. Now, they'll spend money on some high-priced items with a condition. If it is a high-priced, an abnormally expensive item for its particular category, it has to have other uses inside of that same item. That's when they will go ahead and spend extra money. So, if they're going to spend $200 for shoes, those shoes are going to have to grow with the foot. Oh yeah, and they're going to be formal wear. There are no shoes like that, so they don't spend $200 on shoes. Nobody's doing that but us. We are the only people spending $200 on some damn shoes. $50 and $60 clothes. They do it occasionally if it's formal wear. What is the reason? Formal wear has two purposes with them. Either it is used when they're making money, and on occasion it might be used to at least stop them from losing money. But usually formal wear for them is for the purpose of making money, so they'll spend a little bit more money on formal wear. And they don't have to, so a lot of them don't. What are we doing? Trying to look fly. We're black and we've been taught to hate ourselves. We're never going to look fly to each other until we change what's up here, not what's on here. That's all I'm trying to get black folk to do. Stop coming against Minister Banks for telling us this. I hope this has been a benefit. Assalamu alaikum and peace to you.